Talani excelled in school, gaining the admiration of her teachers and peers. But as the eldest daughter of a struggling family, her achievements were seen as more than personal success. Her mother, Mama Afolayan, constantly reminded her of the family's financial struggles. One evening, after Talani returned home from school, Mama Afolayan sat her down for a serious talk. The family's financial situation was worsening, and the only solution in her mother's eyes was for Talani to marry into wealth. Though Talani respected her mother, the thought of marrying for money filled her with dread. She dreamed of finishing her studies and pursuing a career, but family duty weighed heavily on her. Deep down, she knew the family relied on her. Would her dreams of happiness be sacrificed for her family's future? Talani found solace in her friendship with Emeka, a talented but struggling artist from her neighborhood. Emeka lived for his art, pouring every emotion into his paintings. Though many dismissed him as a dreamer with no real future, Talani saw something else, a heart full of passion and potential. The two had grown close over the years, sharing late-night conversations about their dreams and aspirations. Emeka's love for her was undeniable, though he never voiced it directly. Talani knew that being with Emeka would mean living a simple life, but one filled with love and purpose. Still, her mother's words haunted her. Love wouldn't pay the bills. Talani's mother wasn't the only one pressuring her to marry rich. Her uncles and extended family often spoke of wealthy suitors, painting the picture of a perfect future that included financial stability. They believed it was her duty to use her beauty and intelligence to secure a good match. Talani's younger siblings, unaware of the weight on her shoulders, eagerly talked about how rich they would all be once she married a wealthy man. Despite their excitement, Talani felt trapped. Every mention of a potential suitor reminded her of the life she didn't want. Yet, the thought of failing her family was equally unbearable. She often sat alone, torn between loyalty and the desires of her own heart. Emeka's dream of becoming a renowned artist faced continuous challenges. His paintings, though beautiful, went largely unnoticed in a world that valued connections and wealth over raw talent. Emeka found it increasingly difficult to sell his work, and at times he considered giving up. Yet, whenever he saw Talani, his spirits lifted. Her belief in him was his greatest motivation, even though he feared he could never give her the life she deserved. Despite the uncertainty, Emeka held on to his dream, hoping that one day his art would provide a better future for himself and maybe for Talani too. Talani's family's prayers seemed to be answered when Adewale, a wealthy businessman's son, expressed interest in her. He was everything her family wanted, rich, charming, and from a reputable family. Adewale wasted no time in wooing Talani, showering her with gifts and promises of a comfortable life. Her mother was thrilled, calling Adewale a blessing. But to Talani, the grand gestures felt hollow. She barely knew Adewale, and though he seemed kind, there was no connection, no spark. As much as she wanted to make her family proud, her heart still belonged to Emeka. One evening, as the sun set over the quiet town, Emeka gathered the courage to tell Talani how he felt. He had tried to suppress his feelings, believing that he wasn't good enough for her. But as rumors of Adewale's interest in Talani grew, Emeka realized he couldn't stay silent any longer. "Talani, I love you," he said softly, his voice filled with vulnerability. "I don't have much, but I want to build a life with you. Will you give me that chance?" Talani's heart raced. She had known this moment was coming, yet hearing the words from Emeka's lips brought her emotions to the surface. After Emeka's confession, Talani found herself at a crossroads. The love she felt for Emeka was undeniable, yet her family's hopes for a better future weighed heavily on her. The
contrast between Adawale's lavish lifestyle and Emeka's simple, uncertain one couldn't be clearer. Tolani spent sleepless nights replaying Emeka's words in her mind. She loved him, but love alone wasn't enough to lift her family out of poverty. Would she be able to live with herself if she chose love over duty? Mama Afolayan's patience was wearing thin. She noticed Tolani's hesitation when it came to Adawale, and she wasn't happy about it. "Tolani, you must choose," her mother demanded one evening. "Do you want your family to suffer forever? Adawale can give us all a good life, but you're too busy with that poor boy." Tolani felt a lump form in her throat. Her mother had never been this direct before. The ultimatum left her reeling. For the first time, she truly understood that no matter what she chose, someone would be hurt, either Emeka or her family.
Sensing the pressure Tolani was under, Emeka made a painful decision. He couldn't bear to see her torn between love and duty, so he decided to step back. "Tolani, I love you too much to hold you back," he said one evening. "If marrying Adewale is what will make your family happy, then I won't stand in the way." Tolani was heartbroken. Emeka's words were noble, but they stung. She didn't want to lose him, yet his sacrifice only made the decision more difficult. As Tolani grappled with her emotions, Adewale grew bolder in his pursuit. One evening, during a lavish dinner, he got down on one knee and proposed. The entire restaurant gasped, and Tolani's family, who had secretly been invited, beamed with joy. Tolani's heart sank. Adewale was offering her everything her family could ever want. But could she live with herself if she said yes, knowing that her heart was still with Emeka? Tolani stared at the ring on her finger, feeling the weight of her decision pressing down on her. Adewale had proposed in front of everyone, and with her family's excited faces beaming back at her, she couldn't bring herself to say no. So she said yes, but the joy that should have followed was absent. Every glance at the sparkling diamond only reminded her of Emeka and the love she was about to leave behind. She wondered if she had made the biggest mistake of her life. Her heart wasn't in this engagement, but the relief in her mother's eyes was too much to ignore. News of Tolani's engagement spread quickly through the town, reaching Emeka like a cold wind. He had known it was coming, but hearing it still shattered his heart. Emeka withdrew from his usual spots, refusing to see anyone, especially Tolani. He buried himself in his art, using the pain as fuel for his paintings. But each brushstroke felt heavier than the last, and the colors seemed duller without her. The thought of Tolani walking down the aisle with someone else was unbearable, but he knew he had to let her go for her family's sake. With Tolani's engagement to Adewale official, the wedding preparations kicked into high gear. Her family threw themselves into the details, discussing decorations, venues, and dresses with glee. They were finally about to rise above the financial struggles, and Mama Afolayan couldn't stop talking about how blessed they were. But Tolani's heart wasn't in it. Every wedding gown she tried on felt like a costume, and each step closer to the wedding date felt like walking toward a cliff. She wished she could talk to him, but he had distanced himself, and she couldn't blame him. In a rare, quiet moment, Tolani found herself sitting alone in the garden, reflecting on her life. Her younger sister, Sade, approached her, sensing something was wrong. "Are you really happy, sister?" Sade asked, her voice filled with concern. Tolani hesitated. Sade was too young to understand the complexities of their family's situation, but the simplicity of her question struck Tolani. "I don't know," she admitted softly. Sade's innocence reminded Tolani of a time when happiness was straightforward, and the realization that she was no longer sure of her own joy broke her even more. As the wedding drew closer, Emeka decided it was time to leave the town. He couldn't stand the thought of watching Tolani marry another man, so he packed his belongings and moved to a neighboring city to focus on his art.
There, he found a community of artists who appreciated his work and encouraged him to continue painting. For the first time in a long while, Emeka began to believe in his talent again. Though his heart still ached for Talani, he poured his pain into his art, which began to gain attention. With the wedding date fast approaching, Talani began to experience severe doubts. She avoided Adewale's calls and canceled dress fittings. The weight of her decision had become unbearable, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she was betraying her true self. One night, unable to sleep, she wandered the streets, eventually finding herself at the old park where she and Emeka used to meet. She sat on the bench where they'd spent so many evenings dreaming of a future together. As the memories flooded back, Talani realized she couldn't go through with the wedding. The next morning, Talani asked Adewale to meet her at a quiet cafe. She was shaking as she prepared to tell him the truth. "I can't marry you, Adewale," she began, tears brimming in her eyes. "You're a wonderful man, but my heart belongs to someone else." Adewale was shocked and hurt. He had given Talani everything he thought she wanted, yet her heart was elsewhere. Though it pained him, he appreciated her honesty. "I won't force you to marry me, Talani," he said quietly, "but I hope you find happiness." Breaking off the engagement was only the first step. Now Talani had to face her family, who had already planned their future around her marriage to Adewale.